Anyway, so since we are starting with a small group of students, uh, what I was thinking of also showing you another interesting feature. So, whenever when XD introduced auto animate, so
Mm-hmm.
it opened up many doors because people who have been working with other software packages from going all the way back to Macromedia days and Macromedia Director, and then Macromedia Flash, which became like Adobe Flash. And these software packages had much more tools to work with, uh, uh, you know, adding some special effects. And one of the things we can do is to add special effects on buttons. Although I am personally not a very big fan of adding too many bells and whistles, uh, uh, because that takes away from the actual message. But at the same time, when you're dealing with people, you're dealing with clients, they might want some, uh, you know, bells and whistles. They can say like "ooh, ah" on that. So, so something like that. So let me start sharing my screen, and we will uh, see that how we can create the hover states on the buttons. So screen sharing. All right. Let's see what. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new document. It doesn't matter what size. I'll just start something for the web. Okay, so so let's just create a button, and I'll just take my rectangle tool and just draw a button over here. Uh, I do want this to be rounded, so I can use these corners, or I can go in the options panel over here. You can call it as your task panel. You can also add those numbers if you want. Another thing you can do is you see this uh, the rectangle, so I can just set up corners. I can even set up these individual corners over here. For example, the first corner, if I increase the number, so I can round just one of the corners over here. Okay, so I think the maximum it's going to go is close to like 200. Okay, so how I'm changing the numbers over here is using my highlighting these fields and then using my up and down arrow keys. But if you're using up and down arrow keys, if you want to move fast rather than just one number at a time, then press the shift key, then you'll be able to move 10 numbers at a time. So I'm going to change this corner as well as the third corner, which is going to be this one. Okay. Let me add a different color, fill color to it. Let's try this little blue. Okay, that looks fine. I don't need any borders on that. Okay, so what I'm doing here is obviously in the design mode, and I'm trying to create a button, and maybe later on we can create a whole button panel from this. Okay, so another thing I want to do is let's just label it. I'm just going to call it button. So over here, make it a little larger so that we can see what's going on. And let's also change the fill color. Okay, so buttons, when it came to giving controls to the user, so button is one of the ways we can have input from the customers or from the viewers in order for them to do something. So for interactive multimedia environment, so buttons are necessary. And if you notice that on websites, we have these button panels, maybe placed horizontally on top or maybe vertically on the left column. So, but when you have buttons, and think about the early stage of introducing these type of functionality to your clients or to your end users, uh, not everyone was very much familiar with what is going to happen and how they are going to take their mouse and click on something. So in order to make those little more obvious, you could add like bevel effect on it. You can add a border around it. But one of the things in order to give feedback to your clients that this is an active button, so that is to create the hover state. Hover state used to be called as the mouse over state. So traditionally, so we used to have a mouse over state. So you bring your mouse over the button, okay? So that maybe the color changes, or it will look like it is depressed, something like that. And then there was another state which was the mouse down state. So the mouse over state, mouse down state, and then mouse up state. So usually the interaction was added to the mouse up state. So if you roll over, or that's another terminology over here, if you roll over the button, and button might change some color, then you click on the button. So once you click on the button, something else changes, okay? But the action doesn't take place until you uh, release your mouse, or we used to call it mouse up. But this is kind of changing because of the mobile devices, because of uh, the devices on which you don't need a mouse. You can just use your hand and hand gestures. So, so instead of saying mouse up, so we can just say it's a hover state. So we will be working with a hover state today, but before we do that, I'm just going to add a couple of more things to this button. Let's say that, let's go a little more fancy over here. So I'll take my pen tool and maybe add, just going to randomly create something over here. Okay, and I'm going to give this a different color. So let's try just add a little darker blue, and I don't need any borders. Then I'm just going to option and drag this guy to make a copy of this. And let's give it a different color. Yeah, let's just use this complementary color over here. You can also modify. They don't have to look the same. So let's just maybe add another point in here. So once you double click on the point, so you can change the corner point into, so if I add a point, for example, okay, so usually it's a corner point, or if you want to change the nature. Just like in Illustrator, you have the anchor point, change anchor point tool. So in XD, you just have to double click on the point to change the nature of the point, which makes sense. You don't need a separate tool to do that. So you're still working with the arrows, and that's okay. All right, so what I want over here is, I want these sort of waves. So when I hover over this button, so these waves come into the button. But before I do this, I need to create a mask. So for that, I'm going to copy the background button itself. So I'll just, I can either copy or I can do Command D to make a duplicate. And then I can press Command Shift and right bracket to bring that copy to the front. Okay. Another thing I want to do is I want to select this guy and this object. Okay, I'm not selecting the text in there, but I'm just selecting these objects, and I'm going to create a mask. So either you can right click, okay, and then you can go and say mask with shape, or you can use Shift Command M as the shortcut. Okay. So now here is our button. So obviously, you know, this yellow color is not showing over here because that has been masked out. But the idea is that we can create a hover state in which this color can come in. But before I do this, I also have to make sure that this text over here, okay, so I can just select it and also Command Shift and right bracket to make sure that this the text is at the top over here. All right, so once we have everything, so I can select all, okay, and I'm going to change it into a component. Okay, so in order to change this into a component, the keyboard shortcut you can use is Command K. It is the same shortcuts which you used to use in programs like Flash. Okay, so Command K, so creates a component. All right, so as soon as I do this, I want you to look at the task panel. So in task panel, there is something called component master, and we only have one component over here, which has a default state. Okay, so that is the default state of my button. Okay, so if I want to add another state to this button, so I can add a state by clicking on the add button. Okay, so when I click on the button, so XT is asking me what type of a state you want to create. Okay, so I'm just going to say, just please create a hover state for me because that's what I wanted to do, hover. Okay. So as soon as I do this, you can see that this button in the components area in the taskbar, it has a default state. So now this diamond gets highlighted, and then there is a hover state. So I'm going to click on the hover state and double click on the button itself and go in there, and maybe I can, actually I can, rather than just bringing that button in, I'm going to stretch. Okay, so now these are all different points and they will be stretched at different timing and different locations. Okay, so that should be fine. All right, so same thing I'm going to do with this guy. So I don't want to get too high on this one. Maybe on this side we may want to go high, because okay, so anyway, so basically what I'm doing is I'm making some changes which can be applied to the hover state. Okay, uh, so I didn't do a very good job over here, but that's fine. There we go. This looks a little better. All right. So this is going to be the end state. Okay, so when I click outside and then select the button again, so I'm right now I'm on the hover state, and if I click over here, this was my default state. So default and hover, default and hover. So now how can I make this active? So in order to make this active, so you have to do this in your prototype mode. So in prototype mode, make sure to, first of all, when you are still in design, click on the default state. Okay, so you have to be in the default state and then change to prototype. Now, as soon as I do this, if you notice that a sort of a link appears over here. This is not a link, but this little icon over here, which has a little electric sort of icon in there. This represents that this is your button on which it's a component on which different states have been added. Okay, so what is going on over here then? So this is the default state, and then uh, the trigger between the states is going to be hover. It's going to be, we are going to do auto animate, and then the destination is going to be our hover state. Okay, so which is already selected over here. I don't need to do anything. And then of course I can change this ease in and ease out, and you can adjust your timing. I'm going to add a little more time over here, like 0.8, so that we can see how this effect takes place. And then if I play this, so in a preview, so now we have an active button. So when I hover over, so it animates. Okay. So once again, I'm not a very big fan of adding too many bells and whistles to buttons, but sometimes you have to do this. Uh, One of the places I'm thinking of is that if you are creating a landing page, and the landing page, there is only one button over there which you want them to click. So you can add some more fun stuff to it, so that when they roll over, so it shows them or it gives them a little feedback that if you click on this button, something will happen. So if that button was to uh, buy here, or if the button was to more information or anything, so that can be done. Okay, so another thing I want to mention over here is, so now since this is a component, okay, and if you need more buttons, okay, so I can go back to my design view. I can select the button. I can also do a repeat grid if I want, or I can option drag the buttons. So I'm going to do a repeat grid and add more buttons over here. So let's say if this was a whole panel on top of your web page, okay, and then of course we know that we can adjust the distance between the buttons, and then you can right click over here and say ungroup from the grid, and now you can go individually in the buttons, and let's say that this button said about. This button says contact, or this button. Something like that. Okay, so all I had to do is to design one button, and then you can easily replicate them by using repeat grid option. And then when you are creating your linkage, okay, so if I have other pages over here, so you can link your buttons to other pages, or you can just link them to whatever you want them to do. Okay. So if I look at this now, so if I play this, so again, all these buttons, when I hover over, so they create an interesting thing. All right, so yeah, this is just what we are playing, but we can make this interaction a little more meaningful, meaningful in a way that uh, let's try to do something else. Let's see if I'm able to do that or not. I'll just create a different artboard over here. Okay, so on this artboard, going back to the design view so that I can start drawing, and I'll just create a button. I'm just going to make it round, both sides. And of course, I don't like borders. Or actually, let's just put a border over here, and we'll just make it a little larger. And change the fill color. Let's try this orange. Okay, so just zoom in over here so that we can see what is going on. All right, so I know that I can bring my mouse on the button, but maybe in order to enhance the feel of what this button is going to do, I can add some sort of imagery over here, like my cursor looks like an arrow over here. Maybe I can find a cursor which looks like pointing finger. Okay, so over here we are not changing the cursor uh, over here, but we are going to add that cursor type thing inside the button itself. So I'm thinking is I was playing with this a little bit earlier. So I have some drawings over here in Adobe Illustrator, and I just changed the color of this guy over here. I made this into a group. I can just copy and paste this into XD. Since it's an Illustrator drawing, it is a vector drawing, so I don't have to worry about uh, vectorizing these. Okay, so all I did is Command V to paste, and of course I don't want this to be that big. And let's see if I can hold the Shift key. Okay, so about this size. Okay, so this is the button. So when somebody hovers over, so what I'm thinking is that this button, actually hand just points over here. So it comes closer. Okay, that is one thing. And let me also label this button. Just call it button again. You can call it anything you want. Just change the fill color to darker gray. Just put it over here. Okay, so when you're doing this, so keep in mind your stacking order. So I created the button, the background first, and then I copied and pasted this hand in there. And the last thing I did is uh, added the text over here. So in other words, this hand is behind the text. So we can see that it is behind over here. But that is fine. This is what I want. But I also want to add um, a little more interesting effect in there. And let me just make a circle over here. Okay, and this circle, let's just give it a color, and I'll just give it a little darker or lighter brown, I should say. I don't need any borders on this guy. And I'm also going to reduce the opacity. I can, if I want to play with this, rather than reducing the opacity, in order to get a different effect, I can also use one of these blending modes. Remember those blending modes which are in Photoshop and also in Illustrator. So maybe I'll just, with a little bit of reduced opacity, I'm just going to use blending mode of multiply. So I like the multiplication of this lighter brown with the background over here. Okay, so this is looking good. Next thing I need to do is, just like we did on the previous button, so I'm going to copy the button or make a duplicate. Okay, and before I do anything, I also want to make sure that the text is at the top. Okay, so once again, keyboard shortcut, remember, Command, Shift, and then right bracket. That will make sure that button is on top of, or the text is on top of everything now. Okay, so the uh, the copy which I made over here, I want to bring this forward. So I'm going to Command and then right bracket so that it is over this guy, but it is not over the hand. So I need to bring the hand on top over here. Okay, because I don't want hand to be part of the masking which I'm going to do. Okay, so now I'm going to select the top button and the circle, and I'm going to mask it. So remember the keyboard shortcut, that was Command Shift M. Okay, so this portion has been masked. So now this is looking great. Next thing I need to do is to make sure to select everything from here and change it into a component. Okay, so keyboard shortcut Command K. Okay, so now it's a component. So how do I know it's a component? That I get this green color bounding box around it, and the top left corner of that bounding box will have a little diamond shape anchor point over there. Okay, so this represents that this is a component. Okay, so in order to work with this component now, so I can see that I'm looking at the default state. Okay, so I can add a state just like we did earlier. We are going to add a hover state, and in the hover state, so I can just click outside, select this guy again, click on the hover state again. Sometimes when you're working, so I've seen that there's a little bit of a glitch. So usually I like to just select this first and then click on the hover state, and so it will make sure that you are in the hover area. And here, I'm just going to double click over here, double click, and I'll just start with the circle. Maybe I want the circle to be now a little larger. Maybe cover about this much of an area. I don't have to worry about what is going outside because it is all masked. And also the hand over here, I want the hand to become a little smaller. And also come a little closer to the button itself. Okay, so let's check that out. So when I select this guy, so this is your hover state and this is your default state. Default hover, default hover. Okay, so after doing that, since I need to add this interactivity and animation to it, so I'll make sure that I am in my default state. And then I'll go to my prototype. And in prototype, I can already see that I see this little electric sort of icon over here. So that means that this button has a component which has a state to it. And this is ready to be uh, uh, added any interaction to it. So anyway, so this is your default state. And I want to change the hover state, okay, default. So in default, I'm going to add a trigger of hover, okay. You can also add tap to it. So like on a cell phone, so you can just tap the screen or you can create hover. Other type of gestures can be swiping, okay, or double tapping and things like that. So um, okay, so right now, XT is only giving me one option of hover, or rather two options over here, hover or tap. So that's fine. So hover, auto animate, and which state it's going to change to, and that is going to be the hover state. And you can do ease in and ease out, and let's just make it about 0.4 seconds. All right, and then let's just play this. And when I hover over, so you can see an interesting effect taking place. Okay, so I do want you to play with uh, these hover techniques. Now, these are just a couple of examples. But again, you can just think of anything and you can do that. So maybe let's just do one more over here quickly. Just create another artboard. Make sure that I'm in the design view so that I can draw something over here. This time I'm just going to draw a circle. Okay, and yeah, let's just work with that. Then I'm going to add a little, let's add blue, lighter blue over here. No border. Okay. Going to grab my pen tool over here. Draw a line. Just going to draw a little longer line. Click over here, and I think I should add more points in here. Okay, so since I'm working with the pen tool, I'm still connected. So even if I go back on the path, so it is still there. I can close this path and I'm going to pull this guy down. This guy up. Just trying to create a sort of a wave. Uh, Obviously, by default, you get these corner points. As I mentioned before, you can just easily double click on them to change them into smooth points. Okay, so we did something like this earlier, but this time I'm going to add a fill color. Okay, so this should be fine, this purplish color. And I'm going to option and drag a copy of this over here. Okay, so the problem what I'm getting is because I still have those borders going, so I need to get rid of the borders. Okay. And then, if you have to make any adjustments, you can always go in and make any fine adjustments to the points. So if I, when I was drawing, so if I kept the starting and the ending point at the same level, then I shouldn't have that much of a problem over here. But then, anyway, so it can be fixed. Double click and say that. Okay, anyway, I'm not going to spend that much time on it. So basically what I want to create is when we hover over, so there's a wave going. So another thing I can do is to shift click both of these waves, and then I can group them together. Okay. And not just that, but I want this wave, let's try that blending mode of multiply again. Oh, I like that. Okay. So, but I want the wave to only show itself in the circle itself. So for that, I'm going to select the circle, Command D to duplicate, Command Shift right bracket to bring it forward. Okay. And just going to select everything over here and Command Shift M. Okay. So that creates your mask. Okay. Another thing I want to do over here is I'm going to double click again, only select the background circle. I'm going to copy this, or I can just duplicate, that's fine. And I'm going to bring this guy forward, Command Shift right bracket. And in this, I'm going to change the color. And if you remember, when you are working with colors, obviously in this area, you can change. You can select any of the hues which is selected over here in this spectrum of colors. You can change the opacity of the that particular hue over here. Okay. Another thing is that I can also change the nature of the color from solid color, which is default, to radial or linear gradient. So this time I'm just going to add a gradient to it, and let's try adding a radial gradient. Now, so whatever color was selected, so based on that, XD is giving you a gradient from this darker gray or black to the color which was selected over here. Now I don't want this highlight to be over here, so I'm going to select this little circle and just move this up. I can also make this a little larger. Okay. And either I work with the opacity over here. Rather than working with the opacity, I can go back to my taskbar and change the blending mode. So now we can try different blending modes. Let's try screen. Okay. So it gives a really nice mild effect over here. And let's try overlay. Okay. Overlay is a little more opaque, but still you get a little highlight over here. With a highlight, I don't think multiply will work very well, but with multiply, actually it's not that bad. But if you are going with a darker look, so that should be okay. So let's go with that look for right now. Another thing I can do here is I can make another copy. So Command D of this guy, okay? And this time I'm going to change the fill from radial gradient to solid color. And I'm going to use a lighter color, maybe something close to white. All right. And opacity is fine, but I'm going to change this back to normal. Okay. So the blending mode has been changed to normal. So I'm going to make another copy, Command D, and move this guy a little bit over here. So now there are two circles. So I can select both of them, and I can go back to the taskbar over here, and let's say I could do subtract. So the top object is going to subtract the bottom object which was selected at this time. Okay, so now I have this. And let's just make it a little bit smaller. And I can change the opacity. Okay, so this is giving a really nice sort of a specular highlight over here. So we have a gradient going. We have uh, another object over here, which was subtracted. So this is going to give a little highlight. Okay, so this is where we are. So now is the time to select everything. And once again, change it into a component. So why do we change it into a component? Because then we are able to animate it. So Command K changes it into a component. And now I know that this is a component with this green colored bounding box with a little diamond on the left-hand side. And going back to the taskbar, we are going to add a state. And we are going to add a hover state. Okay. And in hover state, so make sure that this is selected. So usually I click outside select this again and go back and select the hover state once again. And then you don't have to do this. I've seen this on my own computer. I don't know if it's just on my computer, but sometimes if I don't do this, it does not work correctly. So now in the hover state itself, I'm going to double click on the component, keep going double click and go back to this guy and take this guy and move this all the way over here. Okay. So now if I select this, so this is your default state and this is your hover state. Default state, hover state. Okay. So going back to the default state, now I can go back to prototype. Okay. And in prototype, I'm going to change the actually, I don't want to change anything because I've already done that in the design view. Hover state is already selected. Auto animate is already selected. There's only one extra state over here. You can have more than one states if you want. But right now we are just working with 2 states. And ease in, ease out. And since it's going to be a little longer animation, so I can give it a little more time, so 0.8 seconds. And let's see how this works. So let's just play this, and when I hover my mouse, okay. So this is interesting. Now, what we have done over here is in the early versions of XD, I was going to say Flash, but in XD, this was not possible. Okay, this is only possible uh, uh, because of the hover states which you can create on components now. Okay, so this is like a animation built into the component. Okay. All right. Any questions? All right. So since you don't have any questions, what I want you to do is create a own button. Okay. You can animate it any way you want. I do want to see a hover state. Okay. If you don't want to do a hover state, you can also do a tap. Okay. So that is another option. But hover is fine. So you roll over your mouse. Okay. And the state changes. And the state is changing because we have selected animation, and animation is going to be auto animate. Okay. So this can be a small exercise if you want to apply something like that to your final project. That should be fine. If you don't apply it to your final project, I do want you to do this small exercise where you create one button, and you can show me that you know how to do a rollover effect or the hover effect. So that is another terminology used in the industry, that is the rollover effect. Okay. So questions? Any questions upon, on your final project? Because that's what you should be working on.
Doesn't seem like it, no.
Okay. Okay, that's good. So that's good. Usually, when there's no question, so there are two things. Either everything is very clear, or you're not sure of what to ask. Okay, but I'll take it that you know what you're doing. So, uh, so this is just a short lecture today. I've been giving little short lectures these days, but that should be okay. So now you know one more trick of the trade to work with. Uh, another interesting animation you can create with something like this is just like this. This instead of a button, okay, you can use this as the loading screen, and then you can have a loading animation which can be done as a uh, continuous loop. Now, in order to do a continuous loop, uh, you don't need to just do it in just one component, okay? But you can do it between two artboards. Okay, so when your animation goes from this side to reach over here, and in the next artboard, so you can have the different states. So rather than doing a state, if you do it between the artboards, and then you can connect the artboards. So connecting artboard 1 to go to artboard 2, and artboard 2 to go back to artboard 1. So basically you are creating that continuous loop. Okay, so it will keep playing continuously. So that is another way you can use this feature. All right, guys, so if you don't have any questions, so I'm going to stop here. And if you get any questions, so please email and let me know.
Sounds good.
Very good. So
thanks for teaching.
thank you. And thanks for coming to the Zoom lectures. I know that it's a little hard for a few people, but again, that should be fine. So we are getting used to it now. All right, guys. So Cody, so when we first started, so you had some sort of voice filter.
Yeah.
So what were you playing with?
Voice mod.
Okay, so before we leave, so can your voice mod say goodbye to us?
I can play some music on it.
Sure.
Let me check what the button was.
All right, guys. So I'll see you on Thursday.
All right, bye.
All right. Bye, guys.
Sounds good.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.